everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of The
Geek
Buddies!
Hey!
We're back at it on another Friday for some geek goodness brought to you by us here at Geek Buddies. We're excited to jump into so many things going on in the world of entertainment. We should introduce ourselves first. For those of you who may be new, I am the Outlaw John Roker, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel. I'm a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm a television actor and an animation writer, where you can see some of our current work right now on Netflix with the first three seasons 1, 2, and 3 of Strawberry Shortcake, Barry in the Big City. And it finished on YouTube, right, Mikey? All season 3 is out?
See, I'm not sure about season 3 coming to YouTube. To YouTube, it's finished for the moment.
Okay.
All of them are on Netflix. Animated specials on Netflix. Final of the 4 animated specials, Strawberry Shortcake Summer Vacation, where we introduce Strawberry Shortcake's family back in Berryville, comes out next month.
Nice. But also, Shannon, you should talk about your other project that you have going on here with Eric Rogers that is debuting on Prime Video, that is out now. Am I correct on that? Is it out now?
Yes, you are correct. Yes,
okay.
A friend of the show, good buddy of ours, Eric Rogers. He created a new show that's on Amazon Prime right now. They dropped the first 8 episodes this week, called Angry Birds Mystery Island. I was fortunate enough to write one of those episodes. Mine's not going to come out until later in the year, but the first 8, are able to stream on Amazon Prime right now. And some other friends of the show, which I know have been on the Cinephiles as well, Dave Rapp and also Josh Haber, they have also written scripts for that as well. But I think the first 8, they might all be Eric. It might be. Yeah. Eric did a lot of writing. Not only did he create the show and ran the show, he also wrote a big old chunk of episodes.
Wow.
But yes, those are available to stream right now on Amazon Prime.
You can tell me off mic who's the better boss. Yeah, I know you.
I thought this was a partnership.
Anyway,
there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things I worry about in life. That question's not one of them.
Oh, nice.
Well, gonna be hearing about this later.
Can't wait to get to that text. All right. Anyway, we have so much to jump into here. We got news going on from Con. George Lucas having some commentary about his movies here. We're going to address that. That just dropped a little bit earlier today. We're going to talk about some trailers, big trailers that dropped, some Star Trek news, and we're going to get into Marvel. And the way we work our show is each of us brings up a geek news item. We talk about it amongst ourselves, take a couple breaks. Then we get into our big news item. That's going to be all the stuff going on with Marvel that dropped this week. We're going to put it all in the back end of the show. So there is time codes down below. So if you want to go to that section, go to that section now. But if not, you can hang out with us as we go through these 3 topics for sure. Michael, I think you're kicking us off, man. Where are we going?
I think we're going to Con. As Johnny mentioned, George Lucas was recently at Con to receive the Palme d'Or reward at the festival's closing ceremony to honor him for everything he has done for cinema, not just Star Wars and Indiana Jones, but in creating Lucasfilm, LucasArts, VFX, Giant Light, Industrial Light and Magic, and Cinema Audio THX. So George Lucas, in addition to giving us one of the most enduring franchises that we all love to argue about constantly, almost every day. The man has really done a lot. I mean, digital editing, digital effects. I mean, so much of what we look at as the way that the film industry works today, George Lucas is pretty responsible for. So much deserved award and reward for his awards. I don't know. It's early, guys. I need more coffee. But speaking to Variety ahead of the of him getting the award, he talked about some of the negative criticism that Star Wars has received over the years. Particularly sort of some of the racism, the depiction of women, lots of stuff. And here were his answers, a couple blurbs. He said, they would say it's all white men in Star Wars, but most of the people are aliens. The idea you're supposed to accept people for who they are, the idea that all people are equal. He added that the only discrimination in the Star Wars universe was really against robots, saying that was done because people are always discriminating against something, and sooner or later it's going to get to something like robots. And then one of the criticisms that he strongly disagreed with was people slamming the depiction of women in his films. And he said, who do you think the heroes are in these stories? What do you think Princess Leia was? She's the head of the rebellion. She's the one taking this young kid who doesn't know anything and this boisterous I know everything guy who can't do anything and trying to save the rebellion with these clowns. And it's the same thing with Queen Amidala. You can't just put a woman in pants and expect her to be a hero. They can wear dresses. They can wear whatever they want. It's their brains and their ability to think and plan and be logistical. That's what the hero is. So,
yes.
Let's break this down.
Okay.
And I will break this down as someone who unabashedly loves Star Wars. I love the good Star Wars, and even the bad Star Wars, I will always have a soft spot in my heart for. I might even go back one day when I'm hungover and watch those horrible race cars in Book of Boba Fett. Like, you will see. Maybe I'll just check those out. But okay, maybe not those. Maybe that's my line. But this is one of how do I say this? This is a very white man answer. Because he picked the stuff that I think is valid.
Yeah.
Like, I do think that Princess Leia, when you watch the depiction of Princess Leia and the way that Carrie Fisher plays her in 1977,
right,
she absolutely is not the princess that needs to be rescued. She grabs that gun, yells at Han Solo, and starts rescuing herself. Like, there is definitely an element to Carrie Fisher's Princess Leia is an iconic female character that you could argue was ahead of her time in the way that she worked with the others in the Star Wars universe. It is also clear that, yes, droids are discriminated against in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
But when you look at how white Star Wars A New Hope is, which, you know, is what every movie was like at the time. Right. And then you look at Lando Calrissian kind of being the only major person of color. And then you look at a lot of other things. A lot of the depictions of the aliens in Phantom Menace that we have all talked about ad nauseum. There's a lot of things in the Star Wars universe that, were I George Lucas, I would probably point out the things he points out, but also cop to the fact that with the changing times and the way that cultures change, like, you know who had the better answer about this actually, oh, I can't remember his name. What, the director of Love Actually?
Oh yeah, Richard Curtis.
Richard Curtis.
Yeah.
Richard Curtis was interviewed last year because Love Actually was having like its 20th anniversary or something, and they asked him about his depiction of particularly women in Love Actually and how Love Actually is primarily white and everything else. And he just copped to it. He was like, man, the good thing about having a movie that 20 years later people are still talking about is that 20 years later people are still talking about your movie. The bad thing is that when a movie is 20 years old, there's a lot of things that don't age well. And you look back on it and you say, there's a lot of things I would have done differently. Right. And I kind of feel like Star Wars is in that category. You can't blame George Lucas that in 1977, it was mostly white people. Like, that's every movie.
Yeah.
But you can look back and go, wow, I am glad that people are still watching A New Hope in 2024. But boy, oh boy, if I made that movie today, would it look different?
Right.
And I think that's the better answer. And that's not the answer he gave because he's George Lucas. But gentlemen, I talked a lot about this because I had opinions. What do you think?
Shannon, please.
Yeah, I mean, look, as Vogel already put, like in 1977, most movies had primarily white casts. And from George Lucas's point of view, who I think we would all agree doesn't always have
point of view.
From a certain point of view, doesn't always have the strongest sense of character. I mean, from his point of view, look, the Star Wars universe, it is mostly aliens. Like, yeah, but the ones you're choosing to focus on are a very specific demographic. But I mean, and this is where I think what Disney is trying to do with Star Wars, and you can argue their success rate. They are trying to open up that universe. They are trying to make it more inclusive. They're trying to be more diverse. So even though, like, I know we all have some issues with some of the choices that have been made in the Disney era, we also want to applaud the things that they are trying to do correctly. And the thing with women as well, like, I'm trying to think in the original trilogy, outside of Princess Leia, I'm really struggling to think of one character who's a woman who has a name.
Well, you would argue Mon Mothma. But I think that, but again,
big of a part in those.
Exactly. Like as a Star Wars fan today, I'll go, well, Mon Mothma led the whole rebellion. Mon Mothma's super important. Mon Mothma had like 2 lines. So like, yes,
and you know how we know her name is Mon Mothma? Because of her action figure.
Yeah.
Exactly. The female characters from the original trilogy who do have names, we know them because they were made, they were toys.
Right.
Sice Noodles. Sice Noodles.
Right. Yeah. Never spoken about. we see him, but that's it.
Her.
Is she which one is Sice Noodles?
Sice Noodles is the lead singer of the Max Rebo band in Jabba's palace.
Oh, fair enough.
And the dancer there that's in Jabba's palace as well.
Yeah, I was thinking of the Twi'lek dancer. I'm like, does she have a name?
Yeah.
She probably does. I don't know.
But yes, I mean, this is very much the point of view of a very, very successful older guy who's just kind of like, I don't know what you mean. Like, and I honestly think he's being honest. Like, I think he honestly just doesn't see it that way. I don't think there's any sort of deception in his comments. His comments are just a little short-sighted.
Yeah, George has never been the best at, I don't please don't get crazy. I know you all can get crazy in the comments, but like George has never been the best at going, you know what? Yeah, I was kind of wrong about that, right? I mean, we look at things like with the Phantom Menace. Remember that famous scene where he throws a script down and everyone's like cheering their nuts off, and then we get the movie that we got. And I know a lot of people reappreciated the movie now, but like certainly there's still things and holes to poke in that movie. If you're being honest about your criticism and you put away the nostalgia, there are things to criticize. As Michael pointed out, there are some really hard racial missteps in that movie. That
listen, that movie opens up, and I just saw it on May the 4th. Those Nemoidians start talking, and you go like this in your seat.
And the problem is not the viewer. The problem is the way he put this out. And look, George is from another time. So look, just because you're pointing out issues does not mean you're insulting the creator or you're insulting Star Wars. You're just saying that in retrospect, things could be different. And certainly we've seen Star Wars recently try to do better with that. Does it always work? No, I know there are a lot of people who are upset about what they feel is forced women being a part of this, forced people of color being a part of this. And they're trying to balance the scales back out again. It's predominantly white led. Han Solo, Leia, Luke, all white people saving the universe. Yeah, you got Lando, and great to have Lando, but Lando is in essence a sidekick in those films. So it isn't quite. His dad has a black voice, but he's got a white face, right? So the Emperor, white. So it's a lot. It's predominant. And the idea of women, I think that, I mean, he wants to take credit, but Leia's the one, or Carrie Fisher's the one who went in and rewrote a lot of her lines and made her much more of a feminist, much more of a stronger character than the way George was approaching it, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a fantastic documentary, if people want to watch it, a sister show of ours, Force Center, with Ken and Jennifer and Joseph. They did a fantastic 37-minute documentary on Marcia Lucas and how important Marcia Lucas was in shaping the voice of Star Wars and New Hope and all of that. So you can't deny that there were a lot of strong women involved that helped George kind of soften some of the edges overall for that time. And at that time, as Michael said and Shannon said, very much these projects were white-led projects, white women, white men. That's who was the mainstream people going to see these movies overall. That has changed. So you have to adapt to the change. But I do think George should give a little bit on these issues and go, I get where people are coming from. I don't agree, but I totally respect where people are coming from and blah, blah, blah. I wish he had a little more circumspect answer on these kinds of things. But this feeds kind of the more, how can I say this, more hardcore people who hate the current Star Wars. This just feeds more to them. And I think that's a shame. Sorry, Mike.
But I think I agree with all that, obviously. Yeah. I mean, I think 100%. And I love to go in and read interviews with everybody and go, well, here's how they could have said it better.
Sure.
Like, also, George Lucas being interviewed about Star Wars and all he's done for cinema is kind of like talking to the uncle that you really like at Thanksgiving. The uncle that you really like at Thanksgiving is going to say some shit and you are going to go, oh man, Uncle Carl really just doesn't get trans people or like whatever it is. And you're going to shake your head and you're like, yeah, he's old. Right. Like George Lucas is responding the way that a white guy his age is going to respond because culture and taste change. And I do think what is interesting about his response in this discussion is not, is Star Wars too woke now? Was Star Wars not woke enough then? But it's more looking at this brand that has endured for decades and decades and decades, and going, man, back in the day, Princess Leia was a great character. And putting Lando Calrissian in a major role, even though he was a sidekick, Lando Calrissian is one of the key members of Star Wars that we all, as a little white kid watching it, I thought Lando was the coolest guy in the world. So great, good on them for doing that. Was great at the time. Also, you can look at it in a time capsule and go, also, here's the way culture was, and isn't it great that we've moved forward? And so, yes, I do think that the Richard Curtis version of the answer, which is, oh yeah, if we made Star Wars A New Hope today, it would for sure look different. But at the time, that's what it was. And look at how much Star Wars, you look at the trailers for The Acolyte right now, which is getting really good buzz and people are generally excited about. And you look at the makeup of those Jedi and you're like, this looks really cool. And there's some badass people all around. And so I think that, The Acolyte, at least thus far, people seem more, not everybody, because it's Star Wars, so God knows everybody's got an opinion, but people seem more excited about, they're not going, oh God, you're forcing Carrie-Anne Moss down my throat.
Right.
You're like, fuck, Trinity's a Jedi. That makes sense to me. So it looks like people are really kind of embracing these people. It doesn't feel like forced. It feels like, yeah, this is what the Jedi looked like 100 years before the Phantom Menace, or however many years. So I don't know. I'm excited, and I think that his answer is sort of a half answer. He doesn't cop to some of the things that probably we all wish he would cop to. But like I said, it's like your uncle at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, because the Leia Amidala stuff, like Leia should have been the chosen one with the amazing skills and knowledge and leading the rebellion.
Except he didn't know that they were related when he wrote the first
there
movie.
You go. There. Yeah, because both Leia and Amidala are essentially in service of Luke and Anakin. And you can make her the head of the rebellion, but she's in essence at times in service of Luke. So it becomes that kind of thing. And I think they changed that in the new sequel trilogy, which I thought was a good way around it. I mean, Force Leia, I'm still coming to terms with. I probably never fully accepted, but overall, at least they tried to kind of make it somewhat more equal, which I appreciated.
Well, and I think part of what makes Star Wars unique as a brand is that there's been so much ancillary material. There's so many comics, there's so many novels, both the expanded universe stuff from when we were growing up and the stuff now that really rounds out those characters. Like I think, and the animation, like Clone Wars animated, Rebels. And I think all of those things have done a nice job of sort of rounding out both Leia and Amidala to make them stronger characters than they were even just on the page or on the screen in their movies. Like Amidala has a lot in Clone Wars and other stuff that you're like, yeah, Amidala's a badass.
It's true. That's true. All right, Shane, any final words, or shall we move on, my friend?
Let's just move on. I had something, but it's well tread territory.
All right, fine. Well, let's take a quick break and let people detox from this conversation. And I think I'm going to call an audible and have Shannon up next with the trailers. Let's go, and we'll be right back right after this.
I mean, if there was any day to rock a little Harry Belafonte, but okay.
There's 3, Michael. There's 3.
Let's get it on, brother.
And since Mike Spoiler Vogel already told it what we're going to be covering today, for trailers.
I mean, you could have gone Neutron Dance. You could have gone Don't You Forget About Me. You could have gone Deo. I'm just saying.
Yeah. No. All right. Like I said, off mic, Shannon, we'll have the conversation.
Johnny, you're seeing everything you need to see right here.
Yeah. Maybe Eric Rogers lets you do the trailers in the order that you want, I guess. Whatever.
Go ahead.
We've got trailers. And this is an all 80s version of trailers. So there is going to be a certain portion of our audience that is really going to love this. There might be a certain portion that can be like, okay. Maybe John put the time codes in and he can skip to the next category. But the first trailer we're going to talk about is our second look at Beetlejuice, which I could have hummed Deo, or I could have hummed Danny Elfman's incredible score, which we get to hear in this trailer, which is how I loved how it started off. Like I clicked on this trailer and I heard Deo, and a shot of the town, and I'm like, did I click on the right one? And then you hear the bum bum. Bum bum. And this trailer, like, again, I don't know how this movie is going to be. I know it looks like a lot of fun. You know, we get more of our main cast, and you get to see in this movie, it looks like they are really building out the world of the dead. I mean, we get our first looks at Willem Dafoe, Monica Bellucci. We get another look at Justin Theroux, who is wearing a ridiculous ponytail and a soul patch. This looks like it is going to be a lot of fun. Beetlejuice looks like he is moving a little slower because it has been almost 30 years or over 30 years since Michael Keaton has rocked the black and white suit. But I'll throw it over to you gentlemen first. Johnny, what did you think of our second look at Beetlejuice?
Yeah, I did a trailer reaction for this one, which is up on the channel if people want to watch, but I'll say this, I loved it. I really loved this. The last trailer, the teaser, we get Jenna Ortega, we get the idea they're going back to the house, we see that there's a funeral, and we know the juice is loose. That's what we got what we needed, right? This trailer gave us much more of the story, and the log line, of course, saying that there was a death. That's Jeffrey Jones, as we see in the trailer, grandfather, who, of course, I think Jeffrey's still very much alive. So clearly they felt the off-camera stuff, they got to take care of him. And it's a way to kind of bring everybody back together. So the questions are, what happened with the house? Did they leave the house? Is it been rented? Is it B&B? What's the situation with the house? Was she still living at the house, Catherine O'Hara, or not? And then we get we get what it's like to have a daughter who is just like you, right? We're having Astrid, the Jenna Ortega character, essentially saying some of the stuff that Winona Ryder said in the first Beetlejuice. So now she's confronted with herself. And I think Winona did a great job in one of those shots where she's reacting to Astrid's words as if like, oh my God, I'm listening to myself when I was 16 and that kind of thing. And I love that. But when Keaton shows up, great God almighty, that was awesome. Love the energy, love the vibe. He doesn't look like he's aged a day. And I love the ending button with him and Catherine O'Hara. And she goes, ew. I love that. It's going to be very funny. The question is, and I have a vibe coming out of this trailer, I think Beetlejuice is going to work with them against a bigger bad. Why is Monica Bellucci after Beetlejuice? Why is Catherine O'Hara in the land of the dead? So I've got questions here that excites me about seeing this trailer. And I think they're going to come together. Cheering for Beetlejuice is going to be a lot of fun if that happens. So, yeah.
Mikey, is your juice loose?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think my juice is loose. I got to go have it looked at. But I do think that I do think John is right. It does look like this trailer leans towards, for reasons Beetlejuice needs their help, or like I think Winona Ryder, Lydia actually says in the trailer, like, can the living and the dead work together? So it does seem like that is the vibe, which leads me to ask, and again, I'm sure the movie will answer this, but in addition to what happened to the house, what happened to the Maitlands? Like, I don't necessarily think seeing a aged Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin in this movie when they're supposed to be dead and look exactly like they did 30 years ago is gonna work. But I kind of like, well, we left the movie with the living and the dead together. Like, Jeffrey Jones is reading the book, The Living and the Dead. Like, so I'm kind of like, what happened with the Maitlands? Did they move on? I kind of want to know, and I'm sure the movie will sort of address that in the setup of, oh yeah, when I was a kid, we kind of were this, but it went wrong, or the Maitlands decided to move on, or whatever, and then getting into the Beetlejuice of it all. But yes, it absolutely looks like this is going to be them working together, which is funny. I have a friend who he always reminds me of this. He's of an age where he grew up watching the Beetlejuice animated series.
Oh, yeah, right.
Which is Beetlejuice and Lydia being best friends. And when he went to go watch the movie for the first time, he was like, the fuck is this? He's the bad guy? So I do think that, like, you know, there is precedent for, as far as Saturday morning cartoons of that era went, that Beetlejuice cartoon was a lot of fun. And Lydia and Beetlejuice running around together actually worked pretty well. So I'm kind of excited about this. I do think that Michael Keaton has aged quite a bit. He comes up and says the juice is loose, and I'm like, the juice is loose. He's not moving that fast. But that being said, this trailer getting a little bit more of him, like the whole scene of him is sort of the therapist in the room with Theroux and so like good. There's some really funny stuff. There's some nice callbacks to jokes from the first movie, but it also looks like they're just letting Michael Keaton run with it. And honestly, Michael Keaton is one of those actors where I'm kind of like, look, I'm good with him for the rest of his existence as an actor. Like, you put him on stage and let him do his thing, and I'm pretty sure he's gonna be great. So seeing him return to this role makes me excited. The movie in general has, oh, the other thing I really liked is it looks like from the trailer, like seeing the Land of the Dead and everything, it looks like they're really still sticking to using a lot of practical effects.
Oh yeah. With
a lot of practical effects, a lot of stop motion. So even though like things like the sandworms you could easily do digitally, and maybe they did do them digitally, but made it look like everything still kind of has that look of the first movie, which I think is a very, very smart move. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. This movie could be a ton of fun, or it could be an absolute shit show of a mess.
Well, and speaking of the practical effects he just brought up, there is one shot that is very much computer shot, and it's not a great shot of a plane going down. And it's that is the one shot in the trailer that I was like, that doesn't look great. And, in the first movie, Beetlejuice is in about 15% of it. The story of that movie is really the Maitlands trying to figure out how will they get along with the Dietzes, specifically Lydia. So now in this one, it sure seems like Beetlejuice is going to be a very, very prominent role. But when you watch that first movie, it's like, that was the perfect amount of Beetlejuice. It's like, could we have had more? Yeah, but every time he comes on screen, it's a bomb going off in like the best way. So I'll be really curious to see how this sort of shakes out. I mean, Willem Dafoe being in the Land of the Dead, I think is going to be amazing. Monica Bellucci, as Beetlejuice's like ex-girlfriend, ex-wife, something. It all looks really interesting. I hope we have a really great time at the theater when this comes out, which it will be coming out September 6th at the end of summer, which brings us to our next 80s film coming back to screens in 2024. We get our second trailer at Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. This is another one of those movies that, like, God, growing up in the 80s, we loved Eddie Murphy. Into the 90s, we loved Eddie Murphy. And then his career took a little bit of a turn where a lot of the films that he starred in just weren't turning out well. And he he took a step back. He raised his kids. When he shows up now, it's, you just don't know. You don't know what you're going to get. This trailer, I really hope it's good. I had not watched the Beverly Hills Cop movies until very, very recently because they were R-rated, and I wasn't allowed to watch R-rated movies growing up. So getting to watch them with my wife, and finding out, that the supporting cast that goes along with them, getting to see them again, seeing Joseph Gordon-Levitt as basically, it looks like his kind of, partner for this one. Yeah. I just hope we get a great 80s cop action movie. And based off the trailer, it seems like that's what we got. Fingers crossed, but I'll throw it over to you, gentlemen. Mikey, what did you think of our second look at Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F?
Yes. Based on the trailer, it looks like a fun 80s cop movie.
Yeah.
But given the last few things that Eddie Murphy has done, it's sort of like a fool me once, fool me twice, fool me three times. Like I watch every line delivery he has, everything. I'm kind of like watching like white knuckling it on the couch, being like, okay, maybe. It just, he's lost the confidence of, you've just got that swagger. Mm-hmm. Like if you compare this trailer, because we just reviewed the latest trailer to Bad Boys 4.
Yeah.
And look, Bad Boys 4, whether it is a good movie or not, both Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, when you watch that trailer, it's like they just look very comfortable with each other. They look very comfortable with the lines. It's just fun. And with this, you just sort of get that Eddie Murphy is trying for something, not doing something. I just watched a documentary on the history of comedy. And, when it kind of goes through Lenny Bruce to George Carlin to Richard Pryor to Eddie Murphy, and Eddie Murphy, when he came out with Raw and Delirious in those early days before his film career really took off, this man was just all swagger, gave no fucks. And that energy is what kind of drove Beverly Hills Cop, Golden Child, Coming to America, like Trading Places. You just go down the list. And now it's just like, do you got it? I don't know. I'm the trailer was fine. I am very unsure about this movie.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing with Eddie, because the apex of Eddie is Coming to America in the 80s, right? And people may not know this, but Eddie was like the youngest cast member of SNL. Like he came in like at 19, I think, or 18 years old. And the swagger, as Michael talks about, is the reason why he was doing stand-up at 14. His mom was driving him into the city to do stand-ups at these in the city. I think it was in New York and bigger cities, and other cities rather. And so this thing was a part of him. But after coming to America, he kind of had a change. Eddie started to really believe he was the king of the world. And that was the hubris and the arrogance. And you saw that with some of the choices. Harlem Nights, him directing that film, not that great. Boomerang was fine, but Distinguished Gentleman, not that good. Beverly Hills Cop 3 was not good. Vampire in Brooklyn was not good. But then you get these occasional spikes like Nutty Professor or his work in Mulan or Shrek or Bowfinger. But then, as Shannon said, it's a law of diminishing returns with a lot of his feature films. But then there's been this renaissance of Eddie recently because people have wanted to come back to him and want him to reprise that energy that he had at 19, but the guy has kids. He's settled down. He's been through the wars of the industry. He's a lot more humble now, which is great to see. He even apologized for a lot of the jokes he told in the past because of the insensitivity of the jokes. Looking at you, George Lucas, like he understood where he was in the firmament, and now people just want to cheer for him. And certainly, Dolomite Is My Name was a fantastic film that he was a part of. But then you follow it up with Coming to America, which was You People was and Candy Cane Lane was but he was good in all of them. Just that edge is gone. But what I like about this trailer is that it's clear that the movie itself is trying to go back to the best of the first two movies. So Eddie is going to do his thing. He's an older cop. What's the situation with his daughter? What's Kevin Bacon's role in all of this? Great to see Paul Reiser, who's clearly moved up to be the captain there in Detroit, as a part of this. But what is the overall, and seeing Rosewood and Taggart back, Rosewood is clearly has issues going on in his life, and because he's ended up looking like, he's going through some bad times. Taggart is clearly running a security firm, and he's got to drag him back into being a cop to save Billy. What's the connection? What is the connection Billy has to the villain? So there could be a wealth of stuff that we'll really enjoy coming back to. I hope it's Top Gun Maverick more than Coming to America 2. And I hope it's that kind of vibe that we enjoy going back into this world. And from the trailer, I have hope. So that's what I'll say from this most recent trailer.
Here is hoping. Beverly Hills Cop Axel F comes out on Netflix July 3rd. And that brings us to our last trailer, and this one is for a documentary called Bratz. For those of you who did not grow up in the 80s, there was a group of young people who starred in a lot of John Hughes movies called the Brat Pack. Unofficially, I think, what is it? It's Judd Hirsch. Judd Hirsch. Judd Nelson.
By the way, I want Judd Hirsch to be a part of the Brat Pack now.
I'm doing what, Debbie? I'm doing what?
It's not so easy, is it? It's not so easy. Judd Nelson, Ali Sheedy, Molly Ringwald, Demi Moore, Andrew McCarthy, Emilio Estevez, Rob Lowe. You had some people that were kind of on the periphery. But this is Andrew McCarthy sort of revisiting that time and interviewing some of his fellow cast members from St. Elmo's Fire and some of the cast members from The Breakfast Club. This definitely hits the nostalgia point. Again, like growing up, going to your local video store, seeing these people all over the walls, and watching the VHS tapes at home, seeing how they have all aged. And like, granted, all of these people have grown up in the public eye. They all still work. But just watching them all chat together about that very unique time in their careers. I'm really, really excited about this one. Mikey, what did you think of our first look at the Brat Pack?
I mean,
Bratz.
That is the Brat Pack. For us, I think this is a home run because this is how we grew up. I mean, these are the things we grew up with. But I do think, I've been watching a ton. I already said, I was watching the history of comedy. In the past couple of weeks, have been just going down a documentary bender. I don't know why, but being between projects, I'm sort of really wanting to soak up a bunch of stuff. And I watched something about the power of film that went through the most memorable movies ever made. I watched the history of the sitcom. I watched the history of comedy. And I do think, even if you didn't grow up in the 80s watching these movies, I think watching something like this and then going back and revisiting that era, it's so important to where movies went. These movies, St. Elmo's Fire, all the John Hughes films, these were the teenagers that, I was in maybe it was the history of film. It was one of them that talked about when the John Hughes movies came out and Ali Sheedy and Molly Ringwald and Emilio Estevez and all these people showed up as teenagers. It was the first time teenagers in movies looked like teenagers. Prior to that, it was Grease, where every high schooler was like 40 years old.
Yeah, they're all 20.
This was a moment in time where a generation of kids went to the movies and saw kids on screen that looked like them, talked like them, and that's why these kids became so huge, like became these megastars. Where the phrase "the Brat Pack" happened, they all hated the name because it sounded derogatory, but they were like the hottest things in the world at the time. Like it was insane. Like, and it's like you think about like the way that people today respond to like Taylor Swift. And that was kind of the vibe of like, there's this obsession with these people. Like, so I don't know. I think that if it obviously this is a nostalgia play, and if you grew up in that era, you're going to want to check this out and kind of relive those times. But I think this is just really interesting for anybody who loves like the direction that film and pop culture has gone.
Johnny, what'd you think?
Listen, bro, this is my teenage years. These guys are my teenage years. Like, honestly, you know, this was such a revelation in the 1980s because this was young Hollywood. All these people were young Hollywood. We see Leah Thompson in the trailer as well, being adjacent, you know, the Brat Pack adjacent. Of course, this is a play on the Rat Pack, which was Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., and others. So this idea that they were the cool kids, right? But that became a stigma for them later because they wanted to be taken seriously as actors and didn't just want to be known for the films that they broke through on, the John Hughes films. And there've been a varied success with all of them as they've gone forward. But to address the trailer, to me, I got emotional watching the trailer because seeing them all older now, seeing them having a different perspective, seeing Emilio in his kitchen talking to Andrew, that was so great. I've always liked Emilio, and to see him as an older man now talking about this, I love this because these are the people I grew up with, and these are the people who are now my age or a little bit older, and it's great to hear them talking about their lives, looking back on their lives, looking back on the things that they experienced, because they experienced the highest of highs in terms of fame and money and popularity.
Literally.
Yeah, well, yeah, true. Because Robert Downey Jr. is adjacent to this Brat Pack, you could argue. And there are quite a few actors from the 1980s that could be
Michael J. Fox.
Yeah,
John Cryer pops up to say specifically he was not in the Brat Pack.
Yeah, John Cryer, right? Yes. He was left out. Poor, what was it? Ducky, poor Ducky there from Pretty in Pink. But I think Michael makes an excellent point. For those of you who may not know about them, this could be a great documentary for you to watch this and then get inspired to watch these 1980s movies. And yes, it's a bunch of white kids. Yes, mostly middle class or upper middle class, but there are real stories being told about their experiences that connected to a lot of us. Even a Latino kid who was the son of immigrants, me watching that was the quintessential experience of America at that time. And so I think it's great that this documentary is out. I initially was like, oh, I don't know if Andrew should be the one to tell it because it could be biased. But as I watched the trailer, I was like, this actually looks really cool. And maybe these people opened up in a way that they wouldn't with someone else because it is Andrew, one of their own. And so coming out of this trailer, I immediately was like checking Hulu to see if I got the screener because I want to watch this as soon as I get it. So,
and I think you make a really good point. I mean, it's the same thing we're talking about with the Star Wars movies. Like, yes, you can go back and watch these John Hughes movies and litigate them with a cultural eye of someone who's living in 2024. And yes, it's all white people. It's upper middle class. It is some of the depictions of sex and the way the men are treating women is cringe to the nth degree. Yeah.
And some of the racial stuff
some of the racial stuff. Absolutely.
Candles.
I mean,
16 candles.
Long duck dong. Like the less said, the better. But it's like what I was saying, like, yes, from our eye now you look back and you're like, fuck, that is not appropriate. But at the time when those came out, no one had written teenagers like that. No
100%.
One, to go see this movie, even though, yes, it's a bunch of white people now and it's this, like you watch these movies and you're like, nobody ever said, hey, this is how a teenager talks. This is what a teenager's actually dealing with. This is how a teenager really wants to go have sex. So good, bad, and culturally inappropriate as it may be, like going back and watching it now and understanding what it meant for the time and how that led to the movies that we have today, the TV shows we have today.
Yeah.
Without those 90s, movies,
100%.
You don't have American Pie. You don't have, there's a whole series of things you don't have. You don't even have, I mean, I would argue, you don't even have most of the live action Disney and Nickelodeon TV shows that kids grew up with in the 90s and 2000s without the John Hughes movie. So it's a really interesting point in film history.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%.
Well, Bratz comes out on Hulu June, I believe it is 13th. Yes, June 13th. So in just a few weeks here.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. Thank you, Shannon. We appreciate it. We're running a little long on the show, so we got to jump up to our next subject here. Let's get into some Star Trek stuff here. Let's talk about this. Holly Hunter is coming aboard Starfleet Academy. She's going to be playing a main role. That's how it's being described. A main role here for the series that's going to debut on Paramount Plus. This is according to Variety. Hunter's character will serve as the captain and chancellor of the Academy, presiding over both the faculty and new class of Starfleet cadets as they learn to navigate the galaxy in the 32nd century. This will begin shooting in Toronto later this summer and features the largest contiguous set ever constructed for a Star Trek series, a central academic atrium that will span 2 stories with an amphitheater, classrooms, a mess hall, and an idyllic walkway lined with trees. My God, what are we talking about here? And its focuses on higher education, from the throes of budding romance to the pressures of academic achievement to the angst of painful self-discovery. Jesus, speaking of John Hughes movies, this seems like this kind of thing where it would be like a bird's eye view of what it would be like to be a part of the Academy and go through the stages to end up where you end up. So, Michael, you're a big Star Trek fan. What do you think about this news here that Holly Hunter is coming aboard?
I mean, sign me up, man. It's Holly fucking Hunter. Like, I love Holly Hunter. I think John and I can argue about this, but like, I will always, like, I am such a Captain Janeway stan.
Yeah, you are.
Like, I love Voyager. I love Captain Janeway. I think she's great. When you put a super strong female in the captain's chair, and even though this isn't on a ship and it's at Starfleet Academy, putting Holly Hunter at the center of your show, like, that just sounds like a win to me. And I've thought that this was a good idea for a while as they continually try new things and try and expand what a Star Trek TV show looks like. I think this sounds super, super interesting. Like, look, Discovery is ending. Lower Decks is ending. Strange New Worlds is going strong, which is great. Yeah. We have the Michelle Yeoh movie coming out.
Area 31?
Section 31?
Section 31, yeah.
Which looks really, really good. But as they're expanding things, like, instead of just doing another ship, another captain, focusing on Starfleet Academy and giving us sort of the younger kids kind of figuring things out, like, it sounds super interesting. And like I said, like, I see Holly Hunter in the captain's chair and I automatically just see like Captain Janeway in my mind, and I'm like, give me more Janeway. Give me a new Janeway. Give me someone who I can love as much as Janeway, and I'm on board. So I'm very, very excited about this.
Yeah, Shannon, you're not the biggest Star Trek fan, but you do, will occasionally watch some stuff. What do you think? Does this get you excited to see it from this point of view? And do you think, looking at it from the perspective, do you think this is a smart way to get new fans to come in, to have these younger actors playing these roles in essence, an academy situation, an educational situation?
Yes, I think this is creatively, I think this is absolutely the best move. I mean, I think if you want to get a younger audience interested, the best way to do that is to put people who look like them on screen. Yeah. And if you are anchoring that with someone like Holly Hunter, I think you have the foundation, the cornerstone of a potentially very successful series. Now, Holly Hunter, nominated for multiple Emmys and Academy Awards, incredible performer. I think you put her in a larger than life world like they did in Batman versus Superman, which, granted, not the greatest movie. I didn't love her in that movie, but I didn't love the movie though either. So I am hopeful that she works well within that kind of larger than life world. Yeah. Holly Hunter in Succession, incredible. If you can take that grounded Holly Hunter and put her in that larger than life world and they meld, I think it's fantastic. As to the set that they're constructing, it sounds like they're actually building Starfleet Academy.
Yeah.
Which I think, again, just from a visual standpoint, I think is going to look visually dynamic. Yeah. So even though, again, like, I wouldn't call myself a fair weather Trek fan. I like less than I don't like. But this is the type of show, I mean, setting it back a little bit in time, I think this potentially could get a lot of new viewers into the franchise.
Yeah. I like
this. Is this set back in time? Does it
32nd century. So
this is before, right?
I don't know that it is. I think it just might be Starfleet Academy today, or modern times in Star Trek, whatever modern times is.
Yeah, well,
I don't think the plan here is that we're going to see like a young Kirk or a young Uhura or anything like that.
No, I just thought it was before.
Right. But either way, it's a great idea to use her, because I think with everybody who comes into Star Trek, right, when we come into Star Trek, most of the times you come into it as a younger person. So you like having that older guiding force, right? If you come into it like a young kid like me watching the reruns of the original trilogy, and yes, I was young, you sexist shit. You have James Kirk, you have Shatner, right? You're coming in at Mikey's age or Shannon's age, you got Picard, that's an older captain. You're coming in with Kate, as you said, with Kate Mulgrew, older captain. Cisco, older captain. You come in now with Strange New Worlds. If you're a young person getting into a teenager, Anson Mount as you get. Now you have someone like Holly Hunter. So you've got these strong tent poles of figures there to lead you through these kinds of things. Discovery is an anomaly because, of course, Sonequa Martin Green is much younger than most of these captains are.
Yeah.
When we
Does it say 32nd century?
32nd century is what the.
So I could be wrong. Correct me in the comments, but I think that like Star Trek Enterprise, which is the earliest, takes place in the 24th century. Right. Or I'm sorry, the 22nd century. Star Trek Picard is in the 24th century, but Star Trek Discovery is what jumps to the 32nd century.
Yeah, so maybe this is
in fact, I think what it might be is instead of going back, because Star Trek Discovery is way in the future, this might be keying on Star Trek Discovery and going, okay, well, this is what's happening in Starfleet Academy on Earth after the Discovery kind of came and helped rebuild the Federation. So,
which I think is smart because they're not tied to the old canon, just like Star Trek Discovery when they made the jump did. So yeah, they can create their own stuff. Very, very smart. Well, another aspect of Star Trek, let's move on to this. Simon Kinberg is apparently in talks to lead the Star Trek franchise in another way, and it is to produce a new Star Trek feature for Paramount Pictures. This is confirmed by the Hollywood Reporter. The door would be open for him to take an active creative role on the rest of the storied franchise film side, with Kurtzman and Akiva Goldsman still staying as the main creative producers on the Star Trek television side. The project Kinberg would step into is already in very active development. Toby Haynes, who directed episodes of Star Wars series Andor, is on board to direct the new feature, with Seth Grahame-Smith writing the script. And it's said to be set decades before the events of the 2009 movie that J.J. Abrams directed, likely around modern times. It is said to involve the creation of the Starfleet and humankind's first contact with alien life, which of course was covered in Next Generation movie, New Contact, their Star Trek First Contact, rather. So this is interesting because Shannon Kinberg doesn't have the greatest track record overall with franchises. Are we excited about this? Are we nervous about this? We talked about this on the hot mic, and I don't think Jeff and I came away from this feeling necessarily excited about it, more trepidatious. Do you think they should be given a chance to Kinberg in something like Star Trek?
Well, I think he's a 50-50. I mean, he was one of the credited writers on Days of Future Past, which I think we would all agree is one of the best Fox X-Men movies.
100% agree.
He's also one of the credited writers on the Miles Teller Fantastic Four. So he has been involved in some very successful franchises. The individual projects that he's been involved with, it's been hit or miss. And Mike will testify here that just because you are the credited writer on something, if that project doesn't turn out well, that ain't always your fault. Again, because he has so many credits under his belt, I think what you do get with him is someone who cares about the franchise. And I think that's probably the first step that you want to get, is someone that does have a proven-ish track record. But like he direct, like I think the only film he's directed was that Dark Phoenix movie, that one, again, maybe this guy just ain't a director. Maybe he's better. He's better on the producerial side. But anyways, it's an interesting pick, but I would definitely defer to the folks who are bigger fans of the franchise.
Yeah, Mike, you could argue like X-Men, Dark Phoenix, New Mutants, Twilight Zone, the 355, not the greatest things to be producing, but you counter that with Star Wars Rebels. He was an EP on Star Wars Rebels, which was pretty well received. EP on Designated Survivor. People love that show. Legion, people still go back and discover that show and love that show as an X-Men show. But then he also EP Death on the Nile, which I thought which I liked, and maybe not everybody liked that. But recently he EP'd one of Shannon's favorite shows currently, Sugar, the one with Colin Farrell. So there are, as Shannon said, is it more 50-50? Is that how you feel about this situation? What are your thoughts here with Kinberg coming in?
It's hard to say. I mean, it's hard to say. He's produced a lot of things. He's worked on major IP, and it's a spotty record. So to Shannon's point, I don't know Simon Kinberg personally, and I haven't spoken to a ton of people who have worked with him. Some people, you know, like some people you're like, oh, this guy gets shit done, but he's an asshole. Or this guy, he has a spotty record, but everybody loves working with him. Like, and I don't really know 100%, so I'm not going to speak to that. But what I will speak to is, I'm just not. I think that Star Trek, I think Kurtzman has done such a good job. I think Star Trek on TV, despite the fact that I don't know that I'm loving the final season of Star Trek Discovery as much as I loved earlier seasons of Star Trek Discovery, I think Star Trek TV is pretty robust right now.
Yeah, agreed.
I think Star Trek TV is going pretty strong. And I think everything about the Starfleet Academy that we were just talking about has me really excited. I can't wait for Strange New Worlds. I'm sad that Lower Decks is leaving. Like, there's just a lot of excitement in general. And when it comes to the movies, I just feel like it is just start, stop, start, stop. Like, in addition to this movie, J.J. Abrams is apparently still making the final movie of the Chris Pine crew of Star Trek to kind of give them their send-off after like movies that were very much the law of diminishing returns. And then you've got this movie, but I think that even the concept of this, like if you told me there was a Star Trek TV show that was taking place after the first contact that we saw with the Vulcans in Star Trek First Contact, and this is humans slowly trying to figure out how we were dealing with alien species and all of our issues of racism and otherness and everything were going to be at the forefront, and it was a TV series, I would go, this sounds great. But when you're doing it as a movie, I feel like the movies need to be those flagship things. And this is where people like Shannon, who are sort of, like, give me the Kirk, give me the Spock, give me the Picard, like, give me the big names, make this the big thing. And this just feels like you can't do with Star Trek what you do with Star Wars. You can't say we're going to do the beginnings of the Jedi Order and people are like, yeah, I'm going to go see that. Like, Star Trek has such a spotty movie record that you got to like put your best foot forward. And this just feels kind of like, good idea for a TV show. I think as a movie, people are going to be like, okay, here's a bunch of actors I don't know playing characters I don't know, or actors I may know. I mean, I don't know how they're going to cast it, but here's a bunch of characters I don't really know. And here's a sci-fi movie that takes place in the Star Trek universe, but it's not like when you're like, this is like when J.J. Abrams came out with that new Star Trek reboot, you're like, okay, here's a young cast and they're playing characters that even if I don't know Star Trek, I know these names and people showed up for it. And I just don't know that this is a Star Trek that people are going to show up for in theaters. I'd be happy to be wrong, but that's just kind of my gut.
And I wonder, as you said, I wonder if this is their step towards like making him their Feige on the film side of things, because Kinberg clearly, as I stated, has produced a number of different geek news properties and been an EP on it to guide it all to fruition, and other stuff outside of geek stuff that he's done as well. Maybe this is like a film they want to try him out on if they settle on talks to see what he can do. Because I mean, you've got Chris Pine coming out 2 weeks ago saying, I'm surprised we got a new writer on Star. I wasn't told we had a new writer on Star Trek 4. So it's clearly still on the film side a jumbled mess, it seems like. So maybe bringing in Kinberg to kind of right the ship and then go from there and kind of see where they want to go boldly forward in the new direction theatrically is their first attempt with this movie, possibly.
Maybe, but like the other thing that I would say is, and look, I love an extended universe as much as anybody. Like I can talk about Star Wars all day long and Marvel all day long, and we're going to see what James Gunn does with DC. Star Trek on the movie side is never, Star Trek period doesn't really work as an extended universe. Like the movies, aside from like Star Trek 2, 3, 4, which
that's why we have two timelines.
We have two different timelines, but I mean, even with the Star Trek movies, the 2, 3, and 4, Khan, Search for Spock, and Voyage Home kind of really connect to each other. But even those feel like very different movies, particularly Star Trek 4, which is, you know, just like, let's go back in time and save whales. But like it's always, Star Trek movies were like an event, and it was almost like an extended, here's a big episode of the TV show. Let's really dive into this thing. And even with Discovery, there's been a lot of discussion of, does Star Trek work as serialized TV? Like, I think what people love about Strange New Worlds is, and Lower Decks is, there's like a loose arc, but each week is kind of its own adventure. So I don't even know on the movie side that I would say that Star Trek needs an extended universe as far as like, let's just fucking nail these movies. And thus far, they don't seem to be doing that.
Ironically, they need a captain. So we will see if Kinberg will be that captain. Hey, all right, we are almost running out of time, so we got to get the break and then jump into Marvel stuff here. We'll be right back right after this.
Do 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 do.
Let's go, Shannon. You take this one, brother. We got Marvel stuff coming on. I need to hear your thoughts on this, Shannon. We've got We got Deadpool and Wolverine pre-ticket sales blowing shit up, shutting down websites, going crazy with how much it's making. We also have a new X-Men writer, according to Deadline, Michael Leslie from the Songbirds. Song of Birds and Snakes, whatever it's called. He is taking over from Hunger Games. He is going to be writing this X-Men movie. We've got a new approach to Marvel with TV and animation being separated out as well. And what's the other Marvel story that I'm missing that we're going to talk about? Oh, and then Vision with Terry Matalas, friend of the show, Terry Matalas here. A Vision show has been greenlit, essentially a second spinoff of a WandaVision when you look at Agatha all along as well. So, Chen, your thoughts on all the Marvel news we got this week? I know that's a lot, but take it away.
Okay. So, like, when you guys were reviewing Picard season 3, and Terry Matalas was commenting and was appreciating, your all's love of that series. I had a vision of what Terry Matalas was going to look like, and it was not the photo you put up just now.
He's a young guy.
He is a younger individual. I saw someone who was wearing glasses and who had gone bald. Based off of, again, your guys's, I just saw glasses. I saw glasses. Look, when you read something, you put a visual to it. That's what I saw.
I saw Damon Lindelof, and you showed me.
I remember when I wrote Picard season 3. Oh.
I didn't say he was decrepit. I just saw glasses. You wear glasses. You wear glasses.
I do. I ain't got no problem with it. Same thing. There you go.
But based off of your guys' love of that third season of Picard, knowing that him taking over the Vision project, I think is probably very, very exciting news. Now, a Vision series had been announced a while ago. Is this the same? Is this the same one, or is this a different one?
There had been rumors that hadn't been announced.
Okay,
this is the official announcement with Matalas behind it. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a really, really exciting choice based off of not just your guys, but also the sort of industry-wide love that the third season of Picard get. I know you all said this, and this is what I read a lot, was Picard season 3 did what we wanted the Star Wars sequels to do. So having, that guy at the helm, that sounds like a great choice. Deadpool and Wolverine breaking box office records for R-rated films. Hey, man, superhero fatigue. Now, just because it shut down a bunch of websites and it is breaking those records, I don't know if that makes it $1 billion movie yet. Does the inclusion of Deadpool in the MCU with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, again, for the last time, does that make another $250 million at the worldwide box office? Maybe, maybe not. But the enthusiasm for the project has me really, really excited. And based off of the summer movies thus far, which, we are still very, very early into it, like right now, the summer needs that hit, and we haven't gotten it yet. And I mean, Deadpool and Wolverine doesn't come out at the end of July, so I mean, I hope we get it before that. But if we're gonna get one, it seems like that is probably going to be it. The X-Men writer, I did not see the Hunger Games prequel, but seeing the response that X-Men 97 has gotten, knowing that there is still a love and a desire to see the mutants on the big screen, the fact that they are moving forward with it, like there is forward progression, I think is encouraging, despite the fact that I do not know this writer. I do not know this writer's work. And there was one more. What was the fourth one, Johnny?
Marvel changing.
Yeah, animation, TV, saying that you don't have to watch everything to watch the movies.
I mean, okay. I mean, maybe Kevin Feige's got a niece or a nephew who's into graphic design. He's like, hey, you want to take the Marvel logo, take off studios, add animation or television? That's just one of those things that's like, okay. I mean, just like I guess they announced that Wonder Man was going to be part of the Marvel Spotlight banner.
It's Spotlight now under the Echo thing. Yeah,
like Echo and Werewolf by Night. Like, okay. I mean, the people that are fans, they're more than likely going to watch everything. But if this is a way to get those casual moviegoers back in to say like, hey, you don't have to know everything to enjoy the movies. It's a move. I mean, we'll see if it is effective.
Yeah. Michael, your thoughts on all this Marvel stuff?
Okay. Deadpool Wolverine, not surprising.
Yeah.
Not surprising, but great. Like, to Shannon's point, like, it's just great when we're all excited. And the movie and the summer movie game thus far this year has felt very tepid. People seem excited about something and then nobody shows up. So I think movie goers, theater owners, studios, everybody wants that excitement. So the fact that everybody bought their tickets early, I'm a little stressed. I didn't buy my tickets early because we're supposed to be at Comic-Con that weekend. So I didn't get tickets for here, but we don't have a hotel room yet for Comic-Con. So I'm crossing my fingers to hope it works out, but I'm going to see it somewhere that weekend. So yeah, it just does prove the same thing that X-Men 97 proved, that we only talk about superhero fatigue when we don't like the movies.
Right. And just real quick, just want to make clear, it broke Fandango's best first day ticket sales record for 2024, beating out Dune 2, Godzilla, Kong, Empire, Kung Fu Panda, Ghostbusters, and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Just wanted to hammer that out.
I do love the headlines where you're like, this movie broke pre-sales on this site for Tuesdays in June. Like, it's like, how many things can you put after it to make the headline? Regardless, I'm just thrilled that people are excited about it.
Yeah.
As far as what were all the things now? Okay,
Michael Leslie coming on as the X-Men
writer. As far as
Michael
Leslie, I'm kind of with Shannon. It's like, nothing about this choice makes me overly excited. I'm not like, fuck yeah, this is the guy. But maybe he is. I don't know what his take was. I think right now we're all living in that shadow of X-Men 97 and going, we just saw one of the best X-Men stories that we've ever seen. So they've got a tall order. So, you know, how the mutants end up in the MCU, where they're starting the mutants, what the mutant team is, how they relate. What does this story say? I mean, as we've talked about a bunch on our spoiler reviews, X-Men 97 just really doubled down on taking our modern issues that we are currently dealing with in 2024 and use the mutants to tell that story in a really compelling way. So I hope they're not playing it safe. I hope they're taking some chances. I hope they make the X-Men mean something. Maybe this guy's going to do it. Maybe he's not. So that's kind of where I sit on both Terry Matalas doing Vision, the new Vision series, and all of we're splitting Marvel into Marvel Studios, Marvel TV, Marvel Animation. More than just changing the titles of things, I think what is most interesting to me is bringing Terry Matalas on reflects that they're really shifting the way that they make the TV shows. And I think that's going to help them. I don't think, to Shannon's point, I don't think putting Marvel Television before something makes people go, oh, now I feel like I can watch this. But the biggest issue that they have had thus far with their Marvel TV shows is they were running their Marvel TV shows like mini movies.
Yes.
Which what I mean is the director was really driving the ship. The writers came in and wrote, but the director was really driving the vision. And that's how movies work. It's not how TV shows work. TV shows work with, like, you have a showrunner who's kind of like, here's what the episodes are, here's how they lay out. And what Terry Matalas showed with Picard season 3 is that he is very able to tell an overarching story, but each episode is a banger and it's paced correctly. And where Marvel TV has sort of tripped up is it feels like a continuation of the MCU, but it also feels like a little mini movie, which sometimes means it feels sort of both too long and too short.
Yeah.
Like that, you know, John famously wants every character in a Marvel TV show to have like extra development, but he's not necessarily wrong, because you sort of are like, I feel like if this was a 2-hour movie, it wouldn't bother me that these 5 characters
I wouldn't say
are just
extra.
sort of there, where they fit. So I do think bringing Terry Matalas in, I think we're going to start seeing these shows feel more like TV shows.
Right.
And I think when a show feels more like a TV show, you know, as a person who's read comics their entire life, there are comics that you love that are in a Marvel universe or a DC universe where you're like, I'm just reading this title. I know that these characters go and fight with the Avengers, and I know they show up in an X-Men comic, but I'm just reading She-Hulk. And this She-Hulk comic is great. And so if they can kind of do that, where I watch a season of She-Hulk, I watch a season of Wonder Man, I watch a series of Vision, they might reference things in the MCU. MCU characters might show up, but it really feels like this is a story on its own. And then those characters can show up in a Marvel Studios feature, and you go, oh yeah, they're in that TV show, but it doesn't feel like you absolutely have to watch everything. If they can pull that off, I think that's going to be really smart for them.
Yeah. I mean, real quickly, I like the idea of Michael Leslie because of how he revamped Hunger Games and clearly is been handed Now You See Me as well in the third installment to maybe get people back interested in that series. So I imagine he delivered a hell of a pitch to get this job. And I know Feige knows how important X-Men are, as important as Fantastic Four is. And so, if not more. And so I think you had to have a hell of a pitch. So I'm trusting on phases 1 through 3, Kevin Feige, and occasional stuff in 4 and 5, Kevin Feige, to pick the right person. So I'm hoping it's the right choice and it goes forward. I would have liked to have seen possibly another writer with a few more credits and a few more successes to take it over, but maybe this was a hell of a pitch and we'll see what happens. The director is going to matter as well. There's still talks that Coogler could come in and direct this with Michael Leslie's script and maybe do a brush up on it. We'll see. Terry Matalas, we love him on the show. We loved him. We love doing the reviews. Terry was very kind to DM us and talk to us about our reviews of Picard. So I have nothing but a joy to see him taking on Vision, a character that has synthetic stuff. So the Data stuff, the way he handled Data in Picard was great. So to see how he's going to handle Vision excites me in his interpretation and approach. The splitting up, I don't think we'd be having this if the product was great. So the fact that the product hasn't been that great, this is an attempt to get people back into Marvel. We'll see if it works, but I think it's window dressing and it's rearranging chairs a little bit on a ship that might be going down. Not fully, but just rearranging chairs on a ship like that. And I wonder if that's going to work. We'll see. I think it's more about delivering better product, and that's going to get people back into it. That's really going to work overall in that approach. And the ticket sales, no surprise. I have a bet with Christian over a steak dinner that this thing is not going to cross $1 billion. He thinks it is. We'll see. Somewhere between 750 and $1 billion. We will see where it lands. But clearly those pre-sales make me think that I might be buying steak for somebody very, very soon. So we'll see. All right, well, there you go. We should wrap up there as we know we got to get going. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of the Geek Buddies. We love you all madly, and thanks for listening to us if you're listening to us on the podcast feed as well. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's @geek_buddies, on Instagram at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's @Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is @MKToon. If you would like to follow Mr. Roca, it is @The Roca Says.
Mike?
After you do all that following, you can do a couple things for us. You can smash that like button below, subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page, check out all the amazing content he's got there. Leave your comments below. What do you think of George Lucas? What do you think of Star Trek? What do you think of trailers from the 80s? What do you think of Marvel? We kind of hit everything today, so let us know your thoughts below. If you're listening to us on the podcast feed, leave us some stars and comments so we go up in the rankings and more people can find us. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you go. Thank you all so much. We will have a Doctor Who review coming out this weekend as well, so look for that. And real quick, just want to do a quick plug. Star Trek 3, we just talked about Star Trek. We are doing that on Enterprise Incidents. I don't know when the first episode is coming out, but it should be coming out. Me, Mance, and Morris talking about Star Trek 3. It's in 2 parts, so part 1 should be coming out real soon. And I dropped a new show on the channel, Spill the Tequila, with me and Winston A. Marshall talking about the pop culture stories going on in the mainstream world. We talked about it with 2 hours last night, so if you guys want to watch it, it is up on the channel as well. So that's it. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us. We love you madly, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode of The
Geek
Buddies!
Hey!